And hey everybody, this is Creation Care 7. Today we're talking about fishing sustainably. And today we are going to have an exciting discussion thinking about fish. In Hebrew, the word dog is the word for fish, and it's about the word itself implies multiplying and abundance. And it seems like something that we have, infinite supply of. But today, as we know, we're fishing more than ever, and we're capturing all this fish and all this sea life, and this amazing resource, which seems like it lasts forever, might be in danger. So let's dive in and let's go around and share our thoughts about fish, sustainable fishing, whether you like it, love it, don't like it. Love to hear from you all.
I'll go ahead and start. So my name is Liz, and I founded the Laudato Si Facebook group after reading the Pope's encyclical. So I have three thoughts. One of the things that we're having trouble with in the United States is the politicization of environmental studies. I think, and if you Google it, there is some work being done. Environmentalists need to approach traditionally conservative groups, including hunters and fishermen. They often see themselves as doing an important job in preserving biodiversity, and yet they often feel that environmentalists are all liberals, all progressives, they all hate us. So there's a political divide. So that's one thing that we can do. And another thing, especially true in the United States, but I think it might be true in many areas, we have a stress factor between what indigenous groups can do and what our laws demand. For example, we no longer allow hunting whales, yet there's a provision that the Inuit, the Eskimo populations, the Inuit in Canada can continue to do so. We have similar problems around the Great Lakes, overhunting of fishing, yet we're allowing indigenous populations to continue to do so. So there needs to be a balance between what we think is a one-size-fits-all solution and helping native populations to continue to live sustainably, and recognizing that their acts do not affect biodiversity in a negative way as our acts of overfishing, overhunting shrimp, etc., will do.
Awesome, thank you. Lisa, do you want to go ahead?
Well, I don't know much on the topic. I just know where I work, I educate about agriculture, and that's one of the ways we grow our vegetables is by using a round system of water that comes from fish tanks, and then the water is full of nutrients from the fish, and it comes back after the vegetables to the fish. And I've heard of the same system being used and being set up in places where there aren't fishing supplies, like in Abu Dhabi have now set up a huge salmon area to grow like a salmon farm, and they use the water for growing vegetables because it's a place with very little water. So that's the side I come from, and I haven't heard of all those things you were talking about, Liz, so that was interesting.
Beautiful, thank you. Chris, do you want to go ahead? We're talking about sustainable fishing.
So just is hello, Liz. Hello, Lisa and Aye. So thank you. Sorry, I think my network had some issues. I was waiting for so long. All right. So we're on sustainable fishing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very broad topic. It's a very broad one, but what I would say is it's ever since we entered this whole new age, which consumerism has caused a great, huge issues in our planet. Overfishing has actually been one of them. In fact, uh, of course, you know that if we don't actually, what the company, the fishing company do is they don't actually fish, they just plunder. It's plundering they're doing, it's plundering the ocean resources. And negatively, it affects our planet because for the cycle of life to be complete, there needs to be more of the species. Some of them, they do not really understand when to do this fishing because it will, some of them could be their breeding season. You just go there, you hamper the whole cycle of life and all that. So that is when recently, when the sustainable move came up and people began to talk about sustainable fishing to see ways we could stop this whole plundering. But the thing there is that the plundering hasn't stopped. The plundering is still continuous. We see this happening in the Pacific and of course at the in the Atlantic Ocean. It's so bad. It's so bad. But of course, as creation lovers, what is intended for us, you know, I talked about this when in one of my discussion about domination. Of course, if we were to use the domination that the world is actually using, a lot of things will go into a lot of, we'll have a lot of problems. But the thing is, we need to rethink this domination that the Bible talked about, because one, the domination we as humans are actually doing is not actually the kind of domination that God intended for us to do. Because, of course, if domination is of this nature and the creations that God has given to us to protect are being plundered by us, of course, God wouldn't, the Heavenly Father wouldn't be happy with us doing this. So sustainably, we ourselves have to engage in it. And of course, many local communities have been doing this over the years, especially indigenous practices. There is a plot in Nigeria called the Arugungu. It's in Nigeria, it's called the Arugungu. And they have this festival of fishing. You don't go to fish at any point in time. You must go to the time of the festival to fish. This allows the fishes to do what? Regenerate, to breed, to do their whole natural processes. And when you now go there, you can be able to catch matured fishes. And this only goes just once in a year, and just one day. So you say that, so you have just one day to get the fishes of all the fishes you want. Then the rest of the years is there. These things are sustainable. So if we are doing the other way around, it will really affect life in the planet. Some of the important organisms in the oceans, like the krills, the mackerels and all that, which we plunder about, some of them are still foods for the bigger predatory animals in the ocean, like the sharks and the whales, which we know the importance of whales to our ecosystem and how their poo are able to get are able to be used by planktons to produce the oxygen we need. So you see, it's a whole lot of things. So sustainable fishing has already been done by the indigenous communities. But the thing there is, how can we have this synchronity with what we are doing now and with the ways of the indigenous communities. So it still boils down to a real thought within us to rethink what we are doing, and of course, get more into sustainable fishing.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. John, we're discussing sustainable fishing, and one thing that's come up from Liz and Chris has been the big thing has been indigenous practices and thinking about how we can have traditional ways of fishing that's more sustainable, as opposed to taking as many fish as we want and then getting rid of all the fish. And then Lisa was talking about systems of using fish and the water from the fish. I think that's aquaculture. I mixed with aquaculture and the other one, but having it in a sustainable cycle. So John, what would you like to share about sustainable fishing? John, are you there?
Hello. Hello. Oh, sorry, my net was fluctuating. Sorry. Please remind me once again. I'm out of the point, please. But I've just gotten the point on fish in Nigeria, the community. So please reframe the question.
Just talking about sustainable fishing. How do we fish in a way that our grandchildren can enjoy fish too?
Okay, that is a good question, because in the African traditional scientific fishing methods here in Kenya that are almost the same as the one in the West Africa. It said that, at present, but due to commercialization, for example, in the Great Lakes water here, we have the nets, and these nets are being regulated, that those nets which are larger, that those are smaller. So the government is trying to come up with the gauges of the nets, but it has been not equal, because the other companies, for example, other companies have been allowed to use the nets which fish every sizes of the water or the fish, you see. But in other cases, you see, they confiscate the nets of those indigenous community, which uses the other net sizes. So the law is not binding, you see. So that is what is killing the fish sustainability in Kenya. Said that maybe let us say it's corruption, I don't know, but we can say it's laxity in the rules, or the application of the quality in the rules, so that we realize that it is only those who cannot afford to give in turn, or to give the kickbacks, will not be allowed to do good fishing. So it is only these companies which are able to punch money, they're allowed to use any size of the net. And this is very not good for our environment, because they are collecting every size of the fish. But furthermore, the government has a good intent, but at the end of the day, you realize that it is not equally applying, simply because it is only the small people who are being forced to abide to the rules. But the bigger companies, the Western, the big companies from China, everywhere, you see, they're allowed to use any sizes of the water or the fish net, you see. So it is laxity, but that intent is there, the rules of the fishing, but the rule is not applying.
Very, very interesting, John. Thank you so much. It's kind of like the opposite of what Liz was sharing, which Liz was sharing about the indigenous people are the only ones allowed to hunt and to fish. And then here you're describing the indigenous people are the ones who aren't able to. And it's the big corporations and people coming from outside. Very interesting. I think let's look at EcoBible, and we can, if anything about it jumps out at you, and we've already brought up some points. So I'd love to build on the points that we've already been building. building on. So so we have this concept about eating things that fish that have fins, things in the water that have fins and scales. And then we were saying about God blessing the fish, and the fish being synonymous with multiplying. V'yidgu means to grow. So that's such a fish can, like I was saying before, fish can seem like an endless supply. But we also have issues with global overfishing, and fish are being caught at huge levels. In 2018, a total global capture fisheries production reached the highest level ever recorded at 96.4 million tons. So they're just catching more and more fish. The percentage of fish stocks within biologically sustainable levels has declined dramatically from 90% to 66%. So we're finding, I mean, it's hard to believe, you know, we have so many fish. The ocean is huge and we have so many fish, but we also have these huge, enormous nets that ships are pulling, and they're capturing so many fish and so many other sea creatures. So it's amazing that God gave us so much abundance, and yet we're still somehow able to waste it and to be so, to take things to such a high level. I think what else to look at? Aquaculture we were touching on, Lisa was bringing up, thinking about how aquaculture can also be done in unsustainable ways, such as shrimp farming operations, where they're actually cutting down the mangrove forest in Southeast Asia. So all these things, all these sustainable solutions can also be done in harmful ways. So we have to apply them with wisdom and with sensitivity. So some choices, reducing fish, eliminating fish from your diet, using sustainable fisheries, and ask questions. Where's my fish coming from? And this concept of dominion that Chris brought up, which is so interesting. And we saw that, you can see in Eco Bible 1, this concept that God said you can have domination of dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky. The biblical commentator Rashi gives such an interesting explanation that he says that the word for dominate in Hebrew is also, it's very connected to the word to descend. And the idea is that if you have use this dominion in a positive way and help things to grow, then you're gonna rise with them. But if you try to be abusive and if you're being exploitative, then you're gonna descend with the animals. So we don't have domination to abuse the abundant resources that God has given us. We've been given a privilege and opportunity to use what God has given us the best way we can, and to take care of God's creation. People want to, I can pull it up again. It's nice to see everyone's faces. What's coming up for people?
Well, I worked with the author Kevin Bales, who published the book Blood and Earth, Modern Slavery, Ecocide, and the Secret to Saving the World. You can find him at kevinbales.net. Anyway, he has done a lot of research on the links between our insatiable desire to eat shrimp in the United States and the Western world in general, and the shrimp farming that is being done in India, Bangladesh, etc. Often these shrimp farms destroy the mangrove forest, which you have mentioned. The mangrove tree is so important for our planet because it absorbs more carbon dioxide than any other tree, any other type of forest, and it releases it gently into the waters, as one might say God intended. And at the same time, these fish farms are being worked by slaves, often child slaves. So all these things are interrelated. Our desire to have shrimp all the time rather than a special treat, this farming that destroys our coastlands and leads to tsunamis and flooding and less biodiversity among the plants and themselves and the animals themselves, such as the tiger, which is losing room to live in those areas, and the mistreatment of human beings through slavery.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Really important.
Another thing I thought when I saw the millions of fish that people, well, they're obviously being eaten. But if we think about how much plastic is in the ocean, it means these fish are also full of plastic, and it's really not the best diet. So, and we can think of the increase was just phenomenal, the numbers you were talking about. So
Well,
there's
and
probably a very big correlation with illness, I would think.
Yeah. And also thanks to some environmentalists, we are no longer capturing as many dolphins in the big tuna nets. And so that's another good thing, that kind of a movement that started several decades ago. And now we're seeing the benefit as dolphins and whales are regaining their population and diversity.
Yes, I think another thing that we can say, for example, over here in Kenya, due to also what is called the genetic modifications, for example, we have had the fish from most of the Kenya market, the fish is now flooded with the China fish, you see. And that the taste of the Kenyan fish is no longer there, you see. And then it is like this. Now, if we introduce the fish the genetically modified fish from China, and then you put it in our lakes here, you see now the modes of feeding, you see, it will be so distorting the natural feeding, as the food chain, you see. So that's a lot of call of nature for the human being to think that it is not only the stomach that should have to be at a time dictating everything, you see. It is just because of the gluttony of the world side that there is monopoly of the humankind or the superpowers, you see. So instead of the China, maybe for example, them importing our fish from here, they've punched their fish of the genetically modified here, and it means in future our indigenous species from the lake fresh, which is more sweeter, we be endangered. We will be cleared off, and you see, then, for example, due to also studies, they also take the spawns, and then they go and do the water. They go and culture the side. So the African sweet fish will be the side, but then the side will be having a lot of genetically modified fish here, which will clear our natural fish. But then now we will be importing the fresh one, the African one that was taken from from our lands here. So you see, there is that poaching. You see, for every region, for example, has a certain taste of the fish. If, for example, the Lake Victoria, the second largest fresh lake is in East Africa, Lake Victoria, and you see the taste of the fish as compared to the China one, which is not like plastic. You see, is no longer sweet. It's not like fish. So with the time, they will now come and bring the one that was taken from Africa and then pump in the market, and it will be very, very expensive. And you see, so that is a lot of exploitation in the fish demand. See.
Wow.
Very interesting. I'm really I want to end because it's 7:30, but I'm really taking away from this. We need to learn how to live in sync with creation as God created it, and stop trying to mess with things, and if learn from indigenous people how they're doing things, and not be trying to always control things, but figure out more how do we live in harmony. And I really appreciate everyone for being here, and for thinking this through with me, and you give me a lot to think about. Next week, I'm gonna be on vacation, so we're gonna skip next week, but we'll come back in 2 weeks from now.
There's John King.
I'll send an email reminder. Good to see you, John. And good to see everybody. Thank you all so
Now,
much.
now I was trying to the quality of the internet. I was trying to balance it. When it is on the video system, the voice could have been not quality.
The it's like sacrifice, the sacrifice that we were talking about 2 weeks ago. You gotta have voice or video. Which one?
Thank you.
Have a good vacation, Ari. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Likewise too. Bye.